After 5 long years of studying, a student comes rushing into Einstein's office shouting, Sir, I finally understand your theory of special relativity." Einstein rolls his eyes and says, "It's about time." The wife and I took a long, leisurely drive out to the country and pulled over to fill up our car's gas tank and tires. She was surprised to see that the station had a fee to fill the tires and asked me, "Why in the world do they charge for air?" I responded, "Inflation." I was visiting the house of a distant cousin when I saw that he was playing chess with his cat, Mrs. Whiskerson. I proclaimed Mrs. Whiskerson has to be the most intelligent cat ever, to which my cousin replied, "Absolutely not. She has lost all her matches." My friend once called a few house painters to his house for some work. He wanted them to paint his porch. After a few hours, the house painters came back for the payment as their work was complete. Before leaving, they told my friend that they had enjoyed painting his car, but it is not really a Porsche. A guy is sitting at home when he hears a knock at the door. He opens the door and sees a snail on the porch. He picks up the snail and throws it as far as he can. A year later, there's another knock at the door. He opens it and sees the same snail. The snail says, "What was that all about?" An MIT linguistics professor was lecturing his class the other day. In English, he said, a double negative forms a positive. However, in some languages, such as Russian, a double negative remains a negative. But there isn't a single language, not one, in which a double positive can express a negative. A voice from the back of the room said, "Yeah, right." My brother came back from school all motivated because he said he would be following a new diet from that day. We didn't really give it much thought until my brother really started eating his homework for dinner. When we stopped him and asked why he was doing that, he replied, "I was just trying to see how it tasted because my teacher said that the homework would be a piece of cake for me." Two young salmon are swimming along one day. As they do, they are passed by a wiser, older fish coming the other way. The wiser fish greets the two as he passes, saying, "Morning, boys! How's the water?" The other two continue to swim in silence for a little while, until the first one turns to the other and asks, "What the hell is water?" I went to this haunted house for exploration. It was near the forest, so the local guide warned me that I might find some animals there. Sure enough, there was a panda. When I offered it some food, I was taken aback because it suddenly started talking. Turned out that it was a ghost panda, and it only ate bamboo. I was in my garden when I got the news that my father had fallen from a 20-feet ladder and was in the hospital. I rushed to the hospital expecting that my father had some major fractures, but he was all right except for some minor cuts. When I told him that it was a miracle, he disagreed and told me, "Son, I had just fallen from the first step of the ladder." A family was having dinner once when the youngest boy asked his father whether worms tasted nice when we eat them. Both the parents reprimanded the little boy and told him that these things shouldn't be discussed over the dinner table. When the father asked the boy after dinner why he had asked such a question, he replied, "Papa, I think worms taste okay because there was one in your noodles." An 8-year-old boy had never spoken a word. One afternoon, as he sat eating his lunch, he turned to his mother and said, "The soup is cold." His astonished mother exclaimed, "Son, I've waited so long to hear you speak. But all these years you never said a thing. Why haven't you spoken before?" The boy looked at her and replied, "Up until now, everything has been satisfactory." A climber fell off a cliff, and as he tumbled down, he caught hold of a small branch. "Help! Is there anybody up there?" he shouted. A majestic voice boomed through the gorge. "I will help you, my son, but first, you must have faith in me." "Yes, yes, I trust you," cried the man. "Let go of the branch," boomed the voice. There was a long pause, and the man shouted up again, "Is there anybody else up there?" A man and his wife are at a restaurant, and the husband keeps staring at an old drunken lady swigging her gin at a nearby table. His wife asks, "Do you know her?" "Yes," sighs the husband. "She's my ex-wife. She took to drinking right after we divorced 7 years ago, and I hear she hasn't been sober since." "My God," says the wife. "Who would think a person could go on celebrating that long?" A food critic visits a local restaurant to review its food for the town magazine. The owner welcomes him and shows him to the table. The food is presented to him, and after a while, the critic calls the owner to say that there is something missing in his bowl of soup. The owner asks whether it is too spicy or sweet or salty. When the food critic says no, the owner decides to taste the soup himself, but he couldn't find the spoon. "Yeah," says the critic, "that's what is missing." Amy Schumer was walking through Manhattan and saw a long queue. Wondering what it was for, she joined it. People would look over their shoulder, see that it was Schumer behind them, and leave the queue, so she would proceed closer and closer to the front. As she was getting closer to the head of the queue, she asked one guy, who also looked and was about to walk away, "Wait a second. What is this queue for, and why are you now leaving it?" The man said, "This is the queue for Canadian immigration visas, but if you are getting one, I don't need one now." A man was driving down the road when a policeman stopped him. The officer looked in the back of the man's truck and said, "Why are these penguins in your truck?" The man replied, "These are my penguins. They belong to me." "You need to take them to the zoo," the policeman said. The next day, the officer saw the same guy driving down the road. He pulled him over again. He saw the penguins were still in the truck, but they were wearing sunglasses this time. "I thought I told you to take these penguins to the zoo," the officer said. "I did," the man replied, "and today I'm taking them to the beach." In my neighborhood, there was a couple who had given their twin sons very weird names. One was named Trouble, while the other boy's name was Mind Your Own Business. So, one day, they were playing hide and seek. Mind Your Business counted to 100 and then started looking for his brother. But, somehow, he couldn't find him anywhere. He saw a police car passing the neighborhood, so he stopped it to ask for help. When the police officer asked him for his name, he replied, "Mind your own business." Feeling insulted, the police officer still asked politely who he was looking for. "Mind your own business," replied, "I am looking for trouble." Four men are in the hospital waiting room because their wives are having babies. A nurse goes up to the first guy and says, "Congratulations! You're the father of twins." "That's odd," answers the man. "I work for the Minnesota Twins." A nurse says to the second guy, "Congratulations! You're the father of triplets." "That's weird," answers the second man. "I work for the 3M Company." A nurse tells the third man, "Congratulations! You're the father of quadruplets." "That's strange," he answers. "I work for the Four Seasons Hotel." The last man is groaning and banging his head against the wall. "What's wrong?" the others ask. Fourth man bemoans, "I work for 7-Up." It's the World Cup final, and a man makes his way to his seat right next to the pitch. He sits down, noticing that the seat next to him is empty. He leans over and asks his neighbor if someone will be sitting there. "No," says the neighbor, "the seat is empty." "This is incredible," said the man. "Who in their right mind would have a seat like this for the final and not use it?" The neighbor says, "Well, actually, the seat belongs to me. I was supposed to come with my wife, but she passed away. This is the first World Cup final we haven't been to together since we got married." "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible. But couldn't you find someone else, a friend, relative, or even a neighbor to take her seat?" The man shakes his head. "No, they're all at the funeral."